Hey, it's Dahlia. Welcome back to my channel. It's getting to that time of year where you might start to be reading a few books. Well, I've read the top 5 books on finance, so you don't have to. Books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Psychology of Money, The Millionaire Next Door, The Total Money Makeover, and I Will Teach You to Be Rich. From those, I've taken the top 10 lessons and habits that might be keeping you poor. So put on a cozy jumper like me, sit inside, get warm, and let's go. By the end of this video, you're going to have all of the key lessons that these top 5 most influential books on finance will teach you, along with some practical examples of how you can apply this to your own life. Habit number 1 is confusing liabilities for assets. In the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the number 1 lesson is simple. Poor people buy things that look like assets that are actually liabilities. For example, a brand new car that loses value the second that you drive it out of the parking lot. Or a huge house that drains you with maintenance costs, taxes, and mortgage payments. Rich people, on the other hand, focus on buying real assets, things that put money into your pocket, such as rental properties, businesses, and investments. If you keep mistaking shiny liabilities like a car for assets, you'll stay broke. The habit that keeps you poor is filling your life with liabilities that drain you. The wealthy habit is buying real assets that pay you back every month. I want to give you a really practical example of assets versus liabilities. So consider a liability to be, for example, a car. Let's say you spend $10,000 on a brand new car. In 5 years' time, the value of that car has likely decreased to around $5,000, or pounds if you're in the UK. You also would have spent so much money on insurance, fuel, maintenance, and the other costs involved in having a car. If, for example, you put that same £10,000 into an asset, such as investing in the S&P 500, for example. If you're not familiar with this, I have a video on investing in stocks and shares on my channel, so you can watch that. But let's get back to the example. If you were to invest the same money into the S&P 500, after 5 years, based on an average return rate of 7%, your £10,000 would now be worth £14,700. So instead of losing £5,000 on the depreciation costs and expenses of a car, you would have gained almost the same amount of money just by having your money sitting in an asset. Habit number 2 is living beyond your means. In the book The Millionaire Next Door, the authors found that millionaires almost always live below their means. In contrast, many people spend every single dollar that they earn, leaving nothing for saving or investing. Let's put the numbers on it and give you a practical example. Let's say you earn $5,000 a month, but your rent, bills, car, and lifestyle add up to $5,200. That extra $200 is going onto credit cards, which at 20% interest turns into $2,400 of new debt every single year. Now let's flip that. Imagine you capped your spending at $4,500. That way you'd have a surplus of $500 each month. If you were to invest that surplus every month at 7%, that $500 a month would grow to nearly $300,000 over the next 30 years. The only difference between the two examples is living under your means. The poor habit is saying I can afford it just because the money arrives in your bank account. The wealthy habit is recognizing that affordability means still being able to pay all your bills and save for the future. Think of your income in 3 buckets: essentials, investments, and fun. If the essentials and fun are eating all of your money, you're not living within your means. Poor habit number 3 is neglecting your financial education. In school, you'll learn algebra, history, Shakespeare, but rarely how taxes, credit, or investing actually work. The first time I ever learned about things like interest rates and investing was when I did my finance degree, but these days it is so much simpler to educate yourself financially. In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the author Robert Kiyosaki says that the school education system reinforces poor habits because school habits teach us to rely on job income and we never learn how money really works. If you're anything like me, the only thing we were told is to get good grades, we could go to university and get a good job, and then stay in that job forever. The truth is that if you never learn about money, you will stay trapped in that cycle. The other poor habit is assuming that money is too complicated. The wealthy habit is making financial learning part of your routine. Even just one book or podcast a month to educate yourself on how to make better financial decisions. Or you could read one book or listen to one podcast a week to supercharge that learning. You could also subscribe to my channel, for example. Poor habit number 4 is having no emergency fund. In his book, The Total Money Makeover, Ramsey is famous for his baby steps. And step 1 is building a small emergency fund. Why? Because without one, life's little disasters like a broken boiler, car repair, or medical bill can push you straight into debt. He says that the first step to wealth is protection via having an emergency savings fund. Wealthy people build buffers so emergencies don't wipe them out. The poor habit is skating on thin ice. The wealthy habit is building at least $1,000 or pounds as a starter emergency fund and then increase to 3 to 6 months of expenses saved over time. Not having an emergency fund for life's little surprises also means that you have to put that emergency onto a credit card, then you'll end up spending even more money in the long term because you'll be paying interest on that credit card. If you had that emergency money instead in a savings account, you would actually be earning interest as well as saving for a rainy day. If you don't have any emergency savings fund at the moment, I recommend that the first step to getting on top financially is to start building this out so you can be protected from unexpected expenses. Poor habit number 5 is carrying high interest debt. In the book, The Total Money Makeover, Ramsey calls debt a thief. It steals your income every month in the form of interest. Think about it. If you're paying off your Visa, your MasterCard, or Klarna, payday lenders, you're making them rich instead of yourself. Debt is the silent wealth killer. Every pound that you send to pay off interest on your credit card is a pound that you can't invest. This habit is keeping you poor. And the poor habit is accepting debt as normal. The wealthy habit is paying down your debt, then using that freed up money to invest. That's not to say never use credit cards. However, relying too much on these and spending beyond your means is a habit that will stop you from ever becoming wealthy. Because instead of saving, you're just paying back interest for things that you couldn't really afford in the first place. I have a whole video on my channel about how to clear your credit card debts, which I'll link in the description box below. Poor habit number 6 is waiting for the perfect moment to start investing. One of the biggest lessons in the book, The Psychology of Money, is that time in the market matters more than timing the market. Most people stay poor or underinvested because they keep waiting. They keep waiting for house prices to drop, for the stock market to calm down, waiting until they feel ready. But the reality is the perfect time to start investing doesn't exist. The markets are always going to be uncertain. The economy will always have risks. And you'll never feel fully prepared. Bit like having a baby or getting married. But by waiting, you're essentially letting fear and perfectionism cost you years of potential compounding growth. Here's a practical example. Say you've got £10,000, but you're nervous about investing, so you put it into a savings account that pays you 2% interest. After 5 years, that money is going to grow to £11,000. Not bad, but not life-changing, and you probably haven't beaten inflation. Now imagine you've invested that same £10,000 into a stock market index fund averaging 7% annually. After 5 years, you'd have nearly £14,000. The author of The Psychology of Money also points out that even professional investors can't reliably predict the markets. Even they can't predict the perfect time to start investing. The wealthy don't get rich by timing every market or housing dip perfectly. They get rich by consistently showing up through the good markets and the bad and letting compounding do the work. So the practical habit here is to start with a small amount. If you've got £200 spare this month, don't wait until you've got £2,000. Start today and automate this process if you can. Because the difference between starting now and starting later could literally be hundreds of thousands of pounds over your lifetime. Poor habit number 7 is having no clear goals or plan. In Ramit Sethi's book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, He says that most people drift with money because they've never actually defined what rich means to them. Without money goals, you could just spend whatever comes in and 10 years later you're in the exact same place. The poor habit is letting money just happen to you. The rich habit is automating your savings, investing consistently, and aligning your money with your personal goals. For example, if you want to buy a house in 5 years and you need a $30,000 deposit, you now have a clear goal you can reach by saving $500 a month towards that goal. At the same time, maybe you want to travel once a year and you've worked out that on average you'll spend $2,400 for flights, accommodation, and expenses on that trip. Saving $200 a month will give you $2,400 a year, enough for that holiday without the guilt. But without having those clear money goals, that $700 a month is just going to vanish into random spending. The poor habit is hoping that your money will just work itself out. The wealthy habit is giving every dollar that you earn a job to do. An easy way to make sure that you're putting money away is to automate it. You can set up a separate savings account, or a lot of banks these days allow you to have separate pots set up within your bank account and set up direct debits to automatically transfer the amount that you want to save into each savings pot on your payday, so you don't end up waiting until the end of the month and having nothing left to save. Habit number 8 that's keeping you poor is overspending on status symbols and image. One of the biggest lessons from the book, The Millionaire Next Door, is that most real millionaires are not flashy. They don't buy luxury cars to show off, they buy value. I said most. The poor habit is spending money to look rich instead of quietly becoming rich. If you're always upgrading your lifestyle to impress other people, you're trading your long-term financial freedom for short-term approval. Most often, people trying to look rich are the ones who are broke. Let's run some numbers with a practical example. Imagine you finance a $40,000 car over 5 years at 6% interest. Your monthly payment comes to around $773. By the time your loan is paid off, you've spent about $46,400 in total. Meanwhile, a friend buys a perfectly decent $10,000 car with cash. That means that car for car, you've spent $36,400 more over those 5 years just to drive something that looks fancier. Let's take this example even further. Imagine that friend had invested the same $773 a month into an index fund at 7% annual growth instead of spending it on a depreciating car. In 5 years, they'd have built up around $55,000, and you'd be left with a car that's worth maybe $20,000. They'd have an investment portfolio, and you'd be stuck with a depreciating car. Same income, different priorities. One of the most costly habits that keeps people poor is waiting too long to start in saving or investing. In both books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Psychology of Money, they really hammer this point home. Time is your greatest financial asset. Most people say that they'll start investing once they earn more, or I'll invest once I've paid off a few things. The problem is that every year that you delay this is a year lost to compounding, and compounding is actually what makes you wealthy. Let's give you a practical example with the maths. If you invest just $200 a month from the age of 25 at an average return of 7%, by the age of 65, you'll have about $525,000. Now, let's say you waited just 10 years to start and you start at the age of 35. That same $200 a month is going to end up being only $245,000 by the time that you're 65. That 10-year delay has cost you a whopping $280,000, more than half your potential wealth. And the only difference was the time that you started. A lot of people will say, but I don't have any money left over to invest right now. That's the trap. If you had just put $100 a month into a simple index fund starting at age 20, then by retirement, you'll likely have more money than someone who starts at age 35 and puts in $300 a month. The early start is what counts. The poor habit is thinking that investing is something you'll do one day when you've reached a certain income level or job. The wealthy habit is getting started immediately. Even if it's tiny amounts, whether $50, $100, $200 a month, the important thing is to get into the habit of paying yourself first and letting compounding do its quiet, powerful work that will build up over decades. Poor habit number 10 is letting your emotions drive money decisions. In the book, The Psychology of Money, they explain that the biggest enemy of your money isn't a market crash, it's your emotions. Most people don't lose money because they're not smart, they'll lose it because they're emotional. Fear, greed, and envy, these emotions can quietly drain your wealth if you don't keep them in check. For example, fear makes you sell out when markets crash, greed can make you buy into the hype, envy can make you spend money like friends who earn more. The poor habit is letting your emotions run your money life. Wealthy people learn discipline, patience, and the ability to zoom out instead of panic. Let's take 2020 and COVID. The FTSE 100 dropped nearly 30% during the pandemic crash. If you had $10,000 invested and you panicked, selling at the bottom, you would have locked in a $3,000 loss. But if you'd held steady, by the end of 2021, that $10,000 would have recovered and grown past to be $11,000. The poor habit would have been to react emotionally. The wealthy habit is zooming out, having a plan, and automating your investing. And you don't need to check your portfolio every day. Wealth isn't built in weeks, it's built in decades. The people that stay calm through the storm are the ones that are going to come out ahead. The author of The Psychology of Money argues that the richest investors aren't the ones with the highest IQ, but are the ones who can master their own psychology and avoid emotional traps. The wealthy habit is building systems that protect you from yourself. That could mean automating your monthly investments so you're not tempted to time the market, or setting clear rules like, I'm not going to invest in anything that I don't understand. When you zoom out, and remember that you're investing for 20, 30, even 40 years, the day-to-day swings of the market are not going to start feeling like a crisis, and they will just start to feel like background noise instead. Discipline and patience will win out over panic and impulse every single time. So those are the 10 biggest habits that are keeping you poor out of the 5 most influential finance books that have ever been written. Now, here's my challenge for you this week. Pick just one of these habits to focus on, whether it's building an emergency fund, cutting your debt, or finally opening that investment account. One small change today can compound into financial freedom for you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel so more people can see this content. Thanks for watching Get On Top with Dahlia. See you next time.